Welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host Rashid, and we're waiting for the other Rashid to enter the booth so that we can get chopping on all of the issues at hand. But then things is going on, and before we further show, let me just explain a few things to you all. For those of you who listened to the last show, you know I lost my voice, but over the last couple of days, I completely lost it and I'm getting it back. I see Rashid is in the booth, and I'll add him in just a second. He's in the booth now. And I'm trying to get it back, but it's still, I mean, it's sometimes it feels like it's back and then it leaves or whatever like that. So I'm dealing with that. But also I want to make clear to everyone who's listening to us, we communicated with this platform, and we informed them that we have pictorial evidence that at least 1,500 views were taken away from our Scott Ritter interview, and a few hundred subscribers were unsubscribed to our channel. Normally, when we contact the platform, they're back within that day. We have yet to hear anything about that, and that's been since the beginning of the weekend. And now we're into another week. We have yet to hear anything or response back from the platform. Um, all that we know that we were close to 109,000. I think we were maybe like 100 away from 109,000 views for the Scott Ritter interview. The most he's gotten from any interview thus far this year. A few days later, we looked and it was down to 107,000. It's been going up. So Sitter had also informed me prior to that the video had been taken down for a little bit of time. We didn't even Scott this. So on top of that, the subscriber count was going like this, and all of a sudden, when the views for the interview with Scott Ritter lost 1,500 views, which is an impossibility, we also lost several hundred subscribers. So we want to inform you of this is what's going on. And even today, before we got on this impromptu show, I went to the control board just to see, and we lost a few more, another dozen unsubscribed people. So this is being done with a concerted effort because we haven't heard anything back after contacting them. Okay, so we want you to understand this. But if we are suspended on this platform, you'll be able to check us out on Odyssey, Locals, and once we get this key stream right on Rumble, because it's telling me that Rumble is having problems receiving the live thing. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Rashid in, and then we're going to chop it up. I got some things I want to read. I want Rashid to comment on, and then I want to play a couple videos. So how's it going today?
Great, bro. Great.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. I just want to chop up a few things because the show the world through the empire, because it is the view of things that is won't get it. So, and you please, for those of you who are listening, please bear with us. We like to get it from the mud and bring it. Listen, this is what was said today by the Americans. Let me pull the article up. Since I was talking to you, I think I'll let the article go down. So the United States warned China about red lines. Now, I want you to understand this. China is a sovereign nation. China is on the other side of the planet. And the United States warned China on some red lines, but China gave them business. I'm just going to be honest with you. The Chinese former foreign minister Wang Yi, who is now elevated to, he's on one of those higher boards, and he's the chairman over it to oversee all Chinese foreign policy. He gave the business to the United States. But anyway, we're going to read what was reported about the United States, because this is so laughable and so insane that if people didn't point it out, you wouldn't believe that the U.S. had the audacity and the Western world had the audacity. Okay, it says U.S. draws red line. Beijing providing Moscow with legal and unacceptable American official norms. That's not a typo. Okay, Miss Egger, let me read a little bit for you. Any nation providing legal support to Moscow, ongoing conflict with Kiev, to cross America's or Washington's red line. The U.S. envoy for the UN, Linda Thomas Greenfield, told CNN on Sunday. Earlier the same day, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken directly warned a top Chinese diplomat, Wang Yi, against considering such an option. We have to be clear that if there are any thoughts and efforts by the Chinese and others to provide support to Russia's brutal attack against Ukraine, that we're not going to read more of that. Stop right there. Rashid, do not comment yet. Just everybody, I just want you to just look. And I'll address the chat in a second. Let's go to this day. Following on cue with the U.S., the EU's, Mr. Garden himself, Joseph Borrell, outlines red lines for China. And it reads like this. The diplomat said he has warned Beijing not to provide weapons to Moscow. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell has concern. The warning came after the Secretary of State similar accusations last week. Yes, China was preparing to send lethal assistance to Russian forces. Now, let's go to something real quick. Here's the thing with these two articles, and then I'm gonna connect them with these with what I have right before me, and then I'll let Rashid respond to some of this, okay? Because this is fantastic. Okay. Now, you see the United States envoy to the UN, then you see Anthony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, then you see Joseph Borrell, the EU Foreign Secretary, which is the equivalent of the U.S. Secretary of State. All say that they have laid down red lines for China not to assist Russia. Now, I want you to unity. China is a sovereign nation. China is a ally to Russia. China is in the BRICS organization with Russia. China is in the race. Another title, Munich Security Conference 2023, and exercising Western self-delusion. We're going to skip down a little bit, okay? And we're going to get to some points right here. It says, this year, not surprisingly, the Russian Ukrainian dominated the agenda. Surprise, however, was the emphasis that Western participants placed over discussions when it formulating a strategy, even some sort of conflict termination. In 2018 at Munich was not simply how to provide more material to Ukraine's military, but how to do so in a manner that escalates the conflict by challenging Russia's so-called red lines. Now, did you just hear what I said? At the conference that the United States and the European Union or NATO attended just a few days ago, the theme of it was to supply Ukraine with even more lethal weapons and to challenge Russia's red lines. Now, we heard about the US and the EU and NATO giving their red lines. Hold on, let's go a little further, okay? Because we have to address this, okay? Let's go here. Now, another article. Blinken warns China to face real consequences if Beijing supplies weapons to Moscow. Now, stop right there. These are the articles that I wanted to get to. Now, America and the West loves to do this. They love to set up little red herrings. So if the things don't happen, they can say we prevented that from happening. China never announced that it was sending weapons to Russia. Russia announced that it needed weapons from China. Knowing we can then in the West can say Western pressure prevented that. Here's another thing. How in the hell can America, and so NATO, EU and NATO and America are really the same entity, and demand that Russia does not, China does not supply its geopolitical strategic ally with necessary weapons to defend itself, and America and Europe and the EU publicly had a Munich conference on the supplying of even more deadly and lethal weapons to Ukraine to not only prolong the war, but to escalate the war and cross all of Russia's red line. What say you, Russia?
Well, first of all, isn't this what we have been saying for all along? They treat China, Russia, and all of them like servants. You know, I'm the king, all of y'all my subjects. Why should not China help Russia? When you giving your friend everything, including the kitchen sink. But if China sends a slingshot at Russia, all hell is gonna break loose. It's just the same thing with him with his little buddy Israel over there. Give them everything, and if somebody gives Hezbollah a old 1920s rifle, look, he's giving them a rifle. But this is how the empire likes it. I can bomb you up at will, and you can't do anything about it. And if anybody give you anything to defend yourself, then I'm going to sanction them. So China needs to stop trying to make economic gains with the empire. Throw that stuff out in the trash. This is serious. Once they get rid of Russia, they're going to come after you. And you need to see this and take according steps for this. America is coming after both of you. And if you don't see this, Lord help you, because she's coming. Russia don't need any weapons from China. Russia got all of the weapons. It's the biggest landmass on the planet. She can make she don't need nothing from Europe, nothing from America. Sanction, go sanction me till the cows come home. Stop trading with them. And if Putin had any sense, he trading, selling gas to China and India, tell them I'm going to cut it off if you send anything to America or Europe. And then you'll see how, you really will see them start talking differently.
And listen, and the U.S. sanctions against Russia's petrol, the gas and the oil, the United States was its waivers and became the Russian oil and gas and from purchasing. It's smuggling that Europe would enact self-defeating policies, but this lets you know that it's a higher power that has these people's minds. Again, we have to look into the mind of the empire, the mind of the Western world. Think about it. Think about this. They want to be able to supply their allies and their proxies anything that they want to give us. And say, well, I'm going to give Rashid enough to defend himself, or maybe I might help him with intelligence. Then it is an outrage and it is against international law because I want to help my friend defend himself against imperial aggression. The insanity of the Western world and the media, or as we always say, the scribes of the West, just go right along with it. They push this propaganda out constantly over and over and over and over again. It's hard to have an intelligent and productive conversation with people here because they buy into the dogma and the propaganda of the West. Just like when I sent you the little picture of a conversation I was having with the guy, and the guy was like, "Yeah, but Russia's the aggressor." Remember that, Rashid? Message. But just providing this guy so much, I no longer even hold the conversation with him. I didn't even want to rebuff what he was saying anymore because I had provided him with audio and videotape of America's pre-planning all of this stuff and putting it into action. And yet he's still saying that Russia is the aggressor when and China is very belligerent. Hold it. And I want you to think about it. As we said on one show, because this is very important too. They say China is belligerent, especially concerning Taiwan. But according to US law and according to 90% of the world's population, Taiwan is an inherent and indivisible part of China. That's why America says she adheres to what? Not two Chinas, but the one China policy. And in that one China policy, Taiwan is included as part of the China. So how can it towards its own territory and America not be aggressive towards Hawaii? Go out on the street to march for their independence. They were made to they were just taken, and the Queen was removed from power. I mean, how make this make sense to me?
It's like if China had said have designs on California, and no matter what America said, what we say is what. Once again, they are acting like they are the kings. You got to understand the mind. You talking about the mindset of the empire. The empire is in her mind. I am king, and everybody else is my subject. Well, how in the world can I do anything that's wrong against my subject? I command and you obey. Period. That's what that is. Whatever the empire says, everybody must do. You must fall in line. I'm saying, once again, the world have to wind up. Forget it. What's his name? Sergei Glasnost, right? The one that's making that economic union in with the Asian nations, right? He said, stop paying the IMF and the world. So stop giving them anything. Just declare them non-void and don't do any business with them. And you'll see how far they'll fall off a cliff. As long as they can sucker and hoodwink the rest of the world, like these other guy was coming around on other day, it was talking about yesterday, I think on RT was talking about the Africa is essential to the EU. Well, why is Africa so essential? Because that's where I get all my gold and all of my minerals and all of my things that make me rich from. If they cut me off, then I'll be the poor people and they'll be the rich people. The people got to understand that the empire is not what Henry Kissinger said, that to be America's enemy is dangerous, but to be her friend is fatal. Right? To be her friend, anybody that's a part of the the EU or the Commonwealth or the IMF, they are there to rape you. Now, we like you said, we're not the brightest bulbs in the briar patch, but we're not the butter knife either. We can see a little bit further than what it seems like the people of this world have been hoodwinked. But once again, we go back to it. Remember this. In scripture, it talks about the rich man. What happened to the rich man? Who brought him to a naught? It wasn't somebody from this world. It was somebody from a higher power who took the rich man and threw him in hell. Right? And who is always running around about how we're the richest country on the planet?
Right. Right.
It seems to, if you are a spiritual man, that should frighten you to run around hollering about how rich you are, knowing what the Lord of the world say he's gonna do to the rich man.
Yeah. We look at this stuff, and I'm gonna play a few clips for you all. Rashid hit the nail on the head with this, and the insanity of American policy, the Western world, and their mentality. And often on this show, we say that these people who run America and run the Western world are insane. They're lunatics. They're berserkers. We call them the bizarro world because up is down, down is up, in is out, out is right. And they use the media to make people believe that right is wrong and wrong is right. I don't agree with a man who calls himself a woman to use a woman's bathroom in my establishment, then I'm insane, according to the world today. If I don't accept
the Western world,
what you're trying to push on me with your lifestyle, now, mind you, I'm not in your face pushing my lifestyle of a straight man. I'm not pushing it, but you're pushing your lifestyle on me. And when I say, hey, whoa, that's enough, then I'm the outcast because I reject what you're trying to push on me. If you say that that's your prerogative, then leave it in your bedroom. Why do you have to force it down my throat? See, again, this shows you that because trying to live happy, you're an outcast and as being wrong, or you look upon that you're not accepting what they're trying to impose on you. Like, and I heard this earlier today, and it's crazy, right? It's absolutely crazy. But let me tell you. So I'm listening to a European leader, or so-called European leader, talking, and they were talking about democracy and how to change the minds of the Russian people. They want to overthrow Russia, balkanize it, put Putin and all of the leadership in jail under war crimes. Now, there's no war crimes for the West in Libya, Mali, right? Burkina Faso, and all no war crimes. There's no war crimes for them bombing Yugoslavia into smithereens, into multiple nations. There's no war crimes for the overthrow of the Bolivian government. There's no war crimes for the overthrow of the Peruvian government. There's no war crimes for trying to assassinate the head of state of the nation of Venezuela. There's no war crimes for that. But for Putin standing up for the interests of his nation, there should be a Nuremberg-like hearings for this. And listen what she was saying as she was talking. Reprogram Russia. Man, I'm telling you. Some of the sons out of these mouths are insane. They have to reprogram Russia, a new educational process, and rewrite Russian books. This is what they're saying now. Because Putin is a dictator. And if you like to be dictated to, then dictators rise up now. Here's the kicker. Putin came to power by a mandate from the people. So if anybody's a democratically elected president, it is Vladimir Putin. Now, you might not like him, but the Russian people likes him. And they just did a poll, which was confirmed by the Carter Center, that Putin's approval rating is over 80%. Put that up against any Western leader and see where it stands. He would stand head and shoulders above those people as an indisputable democratically elected president. Now, what about the EU and the parliament that does not go by the votes of the people or the will of the people? Do you remember when one of the foreign ministers said that we know what our people are saying, but we're going to ignore them, and we're still going to supply weapons to will is to ignore your base, to ignore the people who you claim to represent. You're not going to listen to the people represent.
Well, it show you
That is
how
not
much
democracy.
That show you how much democracy they are concerned with, right? Any country that want this American democracy brought to them, they got to be out. They need like a bullet in the head. The Syria, they bring in democracy to Syria. Look at Syria. They bring in democracy to Iraq. Look at Iraq. They bring in democracy to Yemen. Look at Yemen. They bring in democracy to Afghanistan. Look at Afghanistan. Look at like you said, Libya, Sudan, Somalia, Ethiopia. When the man of the West said that he gonna bring democracy to you, you need to run for the hills. The democracy that he's talking about don't benefit you. It benefits him and his industrial complex. Who can he pull and make the most money? Once again, a scripture. What does it say about him who delights himself in making war? Who have to remove that man?
God will destroy him who delights himself in making war.
In making war. And his actions will show him as a madman. Who is actions are showing him as a madman? If you're going to balkanize Russia, do you think the Russians are going to sit back and say, "Oh, I'm getting balkanized"? Russia got the largest nuclear weapons factory on earth. Do you think the Russians going to sit back and allow you to chop him up bit by bit? Russia will nuke Europe. Gonna nuke Europe. She gonna try to nuke America.
The string.
She gonna try to nuke America. But once again, the Lord of the Worlds is orchestrating everything that we see going on today.
Again, to our viewers, whether you be domestic or international, we want to apologize to you for the stream, the problems in the stream. We have no control over it. This is StreamYard. This is between StreamYard and YouTube. We have the strong signal on our internet connection. We have the backup internet connection, which is a portable one. And it seems like they continue to mess with the stream. So we're just letting you know that when you talk truth to power, these are some of the consequences and the blowback effect of talking the truth to power. They try to disrupt the stream and try to frustrate us and frustrate you who are trying to listen and view the stream. But we're going to keep going because Rashid gave me a great segue when he talked about the insane people and these crazy people. So I want you to listen to what is being said right here. And this is only a minute and 30 seconds, okay?
I have thought that the U.S. has been involved in this war against Russia from the very beginning. And when I say the very beginning, certainly as far back as 2014, when the war by the government in Kiev against the Donbass began. And certainly they've insinuated themselves even further into this conflict. And, you know, when you talk about mad people running the show and engaged in insane conduct, I think one has to look at the destruction of the Nord Stream pipelines, which, as Seymour Hersh has revealed, and as many of us suspected from the beginning, the U.S. was involved in. It shows the U.S. will stop at nothing to try to undermine not only Russia, but frankly its own allies in Western Europe. That attack on Nord Stream was the greatest and worst active environmental terrorism in known history. And again, it shows the lengths the U.S. is willing to go to in this conflict. And there are remarks, of course, by U.S. officials which indicate the U.S. may even be willing to use nuclear weapons. in this conflict. It is a very dangerous time. And yeah, as an American, I will say that I agree with John Lennon, who said, the country's being run by insane people for insane purposes.
And that is what we say every single show, that these people are insane in their policies, and insane, and it is hard to try to come to an agreement, amen, with people who are irrational and insane. Now, they say something often to try to disassociate themselves with what is going on. We know that America was pushing this war with Russia because they want what their goal is this. Their goal is this. They want to destroy the Islamic Republic of Iran. They want to reshape the entire MENA region, MENA, Middle Eastern North African region. And they wanted to balkanize all of the states there so that they can exploit them, and Israel can have total dominion, military and political dominion over them. They want to hit Russia, weaken Russia, and eventually balkanize it, but they want to weaken Russia to a point that when they go after China, they won't have to worry about Russia. Those are their plans. See, they're not a party to the conflict. It is almost like we break into a house together. Let's use the convict mind of the American people, and of the American government and the European governments. Let's use their convict minds to just give an example of their thoughts. And then when we look at it, you're going to see how insane this is. How break Rashid is in the house. I'm the on the top room to go in. I'm the one throwing him in water because it's hot up in there. He's tossing out the goods, right? Now, if the police come and pick him up, and then they say, well, what are you doing here? Well, I'm not a party to it. I'm not a party to the break-in. I'm just standing here next to the woman's window with my walkie-talkie, talking to the person inside, directing their traffic around the house and giving them water and playing lookout. But I didn't steal nothing. I'm on the outside. I'm standing by the window. I'm not a party to what he's doing. Do you see how insane that is when you look at it from that perspective? I think some people need to take the political leadership and take them behind closed doors and tell them to think twice before you talk. When you're doing carpentry, they say measure twice, cut once. They need to think twice before they speak once. Now, again, let's go to something. It says not a party to something. So I wanted to understand what they wanted to convey to the people, because they constantly say we're not a party. You hear the war secretary NATO, and at this, we need to do more and support. You hear Blinken saying it. You hear Kirby saying it. You hear the whole host of your U.S. leaders. Then you hear a host of everybody from Britain to France to Germany to all of them saying this. So we want to know what a party to something means. Okay, so let's go into it. All right. Here's one of the meanings. Someone who is a party to, or is a party to an action or agreement, is involved in it. So if you're not a party to it, you're not involved in it. Now tell me this. If they give weapons, intelligence, and embed their trainers and special forces, what does that make them? I'm asking. That makes them a party to the war, right? If they continue to give cover to political, cover to, and economic aid to, then they still are a party to the war. And under international law, Russia is within its rights to strike NATO territory that is supplying weapons or training Ukrainian pilots, troops, or whatever, or giving. They are also under international law by right able and justified to knock out NATO and U.S. satellites, according to U.S. law. NATO is a party conflict. Now, a party to something, to be involved with particular activity. What are we talking about? The supply of weapons, just of political cover, the media, the financing and armament, and so-called quote unquote Western mercenaries. If that is not a party to a war, Rashid, tell me what is.
I wanted to talk about what they always decide.
You're breaking up. Say it again.
You will nuke Russia. We will nuke Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you now, but they were breaking up your stream.
Okay, they always say they're gonna nuke Russia. Scott Ritter was on here, and Scott Ritter said if Russia decides to send nuclear weapons toward America, you can't do a thing about it. If Russia decides to send nuclear weapons toward Europe, you can't do nothing about it. But on the other hand, Russia has something they call the S-400, the S-500, and the S-600 that can shoot down a lot of those missiles that America sent toward Russia. But on the other hand, America ain't got nothing to shoot down Russia. As we're saying before, these people are insane. They're on a suicide pact to go up there to start stoking war with somebody that has a nuclear arsenal like Russia. Like you said, Russia not gonna sit back and let them bomb them and say, "Oh, they bombing me." No, Russia gonna start pushing buttons and shoot stuff back. And we was about a year and a half ago, they were saying that see, people don't understand what this means. Within a radius of a mile or so of that bomb, 1,000,000 degrees Fahrenheit, it will vaporize you. And they got their bunkers up underground, and they retreats in the South Pacific. They ain't concerned about the average run-of-the-mill Joe Lunch Bucket. They don't care nothing about you. Archie Bunker, Homer Simpson, you're a cannon fire to them. They consider the little people as peons, nothing, insignificant. So they can go over there and stir up these wars in Ukraine and kill 1 million, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 million. I don't care nothing about them people. Only thing I'm concerned about is my power and can I influence the world? Well, the world is pushing back now. Russia is not going for it. China ain't gonna go for it. China is not gonna sit back and let you destroy Russia. China would be a fool to do that. See, this is another thing. Everybody is stupid except me. I can go and do anything I want, and the rest of the world gonna sit back and take it. They ain't gonna take it. They didn't walk up to you. Everybody is rigid. Clowns run around. No world against Russia. No, the world is with Russia against you. That's what that is. Yeah. And why Russia won't bring the hammer down, we don't know. We have no idea. But Russia can bring the hammer down on these people. They got all the equipment.
You know, Barack Hussein Obama, Barack Obama, for how much I dislike him, for being, I think, one of the greatest hindrance to Black America and the of Black America. And he says when they were trying to push him to exactly what is going on right now, he says that would be almost suicidal because Russia has escalation dominance. That means anything that the US and the West can bring to bear, Russia can bring to bear 3 to 5 times more intensely. And for lunatics, see, this is what I'm telling Victoria, praise, hate, nation, mixed geopolitical aims, and also financial corruption. You know, Joe Biden, I think all of that is in play. And all of that, they're feeling that they have to strike out now, because remember that report that the Pentagon gave, that, and that was last year when they said they have a window of 12 to 16 months to confront China or lose the dominance, the US dominance globally forever. So in that position, they are feeling that they had to push up their plans. So now they're doing everything in a hurry. And you know, sometimes when you're in a frantic pace and you're doing things frantically, when you're doing those things frantically, some of the things don't make sense because they're out of time and out of place. And I do believe that can be a reason for these lunatic policies that are in play. I want to go to something on the screen. She says, my family is in Russia now. Yes, you're right. Most of the people are for Putin. Yeah. I mean, they just did a poll that was verified by the Carter Center that said that Vladimir Putin enjoys over 80% approval rating. 80%,
and not one,
80%.
Not one of those leaders in Europe probably ain't over 20%. But yet still he ruling the country. And then they are the dictators. You get on CNN, Fix News, MSNBC, it's a dictatorship. Well, shit, you the dictatorship, because you're not listening to anything, your people. Here it is, roads crumbling in America, bridges falling down in America. The railroad had this horrifying deal in Palestine with the derailment and the cars with liquid countryside, and they got enough money to send Ukraine $100 million, but ain't got 1 cent to fix their own. You see what we're talking about? Insane people with crazy motives. These are people are irrational. They don't think logically. As I said before, Russia got S-400, S-500, and S-600. They can shoot down any missiles, any jets, anything America want to send at them. But do America have something? Scott Ritter was on the show and said they have nothing.
Right.
Absolutely nothing to send at them.
He said the air defense systems of the U.S. is a joke. But again, the American policies, and we look at it, the contempt that it shows to only our allies, but to America that supposedly voted Joe Biden to not go to East Palestine in the United States. The crime when people in the United States are screaming that their water is contaminated, the sky is contaminated, they're feeling sick with headaches. To give them $100 million, now I want you to just listen to what I'm saying. $100 billion at least was given to Ukraine, and not all of it. When we say given to Ukraine, we know that out of the 100 billion, Ukraine probably got about 10 billion, you know, and the 90 billion was kickbacks to Joe Biden them and the military industrial complex to produce more weapons and all this. Well, listen, $100 billion given. Do you know that that's enough money to end poverty in the United States? Homelessness. It is enough money to end homelessness in the United States, but that is not a national security threat or national security priority when people are one paycheck away from being on the street. People are having to choose between paying their medical insurance and their car notes or their house note or buying food. If that is not contempt and if that is not lunatic politics,
I was watching RT News today. I was watching RT News and they had somebody talking about the gun deal and they had some clown up there hollering USA, 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 and the people in the leadership in the USA don't give a damn about it. You've got to understand. And when they talking about they're gonna give what $100 billion, they ain't actually giving $100 billion. They giving a bunch of military equipment, old military equipment that they stockpiled from the 1950s. And, hell yeah. And then I'm gonna put a price tag on it and say this is what we've given them $100 billion of useless junk. The emperor has no clothes. The emperor's money is no good. And if China ever wake up and stop sending those ships across the water to America, you'll see how naked the emperor is. Her manufacturing base is gone. Wait a minute, excuse me, one second, brother. China
go ahead.
was building 7 naval destroyers at once, and they finishing them several months or whatever. America takes 5 or 6 years to build one of them. Then when it gets christened and go out on the water, within 2 months, they got to drag it back into port because something is wrong. The engines are blowing up or something. She is no match for China and Russia. Yeah, and she ain't no match for her. And remember, she's not giving them no $100 million of supplies of worthless stuff. She giving them junk. It's the old 3-card Molly deal again. You know, with the P, where's the P? Where's the P? Which P is it in? It ain't none of the shells is in his hand. He's rigged the game. And most of the people are too stupid to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, thinking about China and thinking about the situation in America, every day I pass by this hospital that's under construction. I go over the overpass, and I'm looking at this hospital now. It's been in construction for about 4 or 5 years. Show you on YouTube, go to YouTube, you may still have this up there. The Chinese built 4 massive, listen to me good, 4 massive hospital complex in 4 days. 4 days. 4 days. It's a hospital here that is still under construction for years.
They can't get past the permits. The permits won't let them. We got to go at least 6 months or a year to get the permits for it. But yet and still, China is backwards, and they got to steal all of our technology. Whereas America's so great, she's in this position. It don't make sense, does it?
No. Start hurt a lot. Now somebody's feeling butt hurt now because they continue with a lot. I was talking on over to some African nations and gave them ultimatums. It wasn't the clip on the last show when it says that America doesn't negotiate. She said African nation said that will do Y and Z did this. So an article comes out today on RT. It says colonizers to be enemies of Russia. African nations form assistance. Oh, and I want to make a correction too. When I was speaking to the two largest trading blocks on earth, and I was talking about the Asia, Africa, I was meaning to put African trading number two. Most people the trade block without the news kids over there. We don't. The Asian let's go. It says cooperation with Moscow is a matter of Uganda. Uganda will not succumb to pressure colonizers to turn against relations with Moscow, or the Ugandans has said. We colonized and forgave those who colonized us. Now the colonizers are asking us to be the enemies of Russia who never colonized us. Is that fair? Not for us. Their enemies are their enemies. Our friends are our friends. They were saying, don't dictate to us who our friends. You know, this in the light of the whole global landscape, the decline of American power, American influence. This shows you the decline of Western power and Western influence because afraid of Western sanctions and Western military might say the things that they're saying of Africa. Africa is the key to Europe's prosperity. Why? Because for centuries, Africa has been the mammary gland for Europe to extract free resources, to refine them, and then sell them to the world and back to Africa price. And this is how they became rich. But with the African nations joining the global South, going to force us to renege on our friendships and our ties with China and Russia. It is starting to look a lot like desperation, the influx of terror, they follow, and then is terrorism. We've been fighting terrorism in forever, drug war in Colombia forever, and the drugs have gotten out of hand. You have been fighting how many so-called fight terrorism in Afghanistan? 21. What about fighting it over a decade in Iraq? But it was terrorism in Libya prior to them coming. Terrorism. I mean, sound mind, and will understand this. What say you, Ronnie? Clip in a second.
It seems that the terror, the global war on terror, was bought by the one who was fighting the global war on terror. When he comes in and everybody's in terror, is terrorized. He is the terrorizer. He is the guy, like I said, the con man behind the card game or whatever. He's the con man that's running around there, the master of ceremonies, ripping people off. He's a con man, a liar, a thief, and a murderer. You should shun him. The rest of the world got to see this. that he is not exactly who he said he is. And once again, his scriptures tell off on him. The rich man was cast out of heaven into hell. And all Americans say we are the richest country on the planet. And not understanding what that means. If there's a God in heaven, and if there is, then his sworn duty is to remove the rich man and cast him into a lake of fire. And all of his cohorts, right? This is something, this is nothing that everybody has not heard on every Sunday in every church in America and around the world. That the rich man must pay for his troublemaking. And who's done more troublemaking than America? Can anybody actually say that?
Get on this right here.
We've seen the evidence in Ukraine, Libya, Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, Somalia, Mali, Central African country, at least maybe 10 to 15 countries, him and his democracy then came and turned the people upside down and caused famine and hunger. But yet and still, the brother said, his scribes up there on television talking about the bad other side, them bad people over there, and never looking at his own self. You know, right. I often say this, one second, that there was this old Twilight Zone episode where the guy was going to make everybody, all of the evil people, 2 feet tall at a certain time. Anybody pissed him off, he's going to make them 2 feet tall at 5 o'clock. And then when 5 o'clock came around, what happened? He was 2 feet tall. America is that guy.
And you know, again, came out in 2017. So now we got what I'm about a few more years, 18, 19, 20.
5 years ago. Six years ago.
Has been at war out of its 239 years of existence. Now, when you add 6, that put 245 years of existence. That means that America has been at war 228 years. When we talk about scripture and the war maker, no one fits that bill, that description, better than the United States of America. Think about it. The one nation that goes around the world claiming that it is the most Christianized nation on the planet, claiming that they love Jesus and follow Jesus, and flaunt international law, bomb people, knowingly make up lies like Colin Powell in the UN Security Council, knowingly make up lies to unseat leaders, regardless to the ramifications of the millions that would suffer and the destruction of nations. Knowing that, you got to say that these people are megalomaniacs, and it's not just a certain person. It is the system, because the system continues to breed those megalomaniacs. If you look back, you can look back to the Vietnam War. You can look back to World War I and World War II. If we go further up to today, just look at Ronnie Reagan when he went into the little old Grenada. You know, in a little country, Grenada. System, from within and come out of has to be removed and replaced, because there's no way that you can look at the leaders and you can say, well, they continue to do the same thing regardless to, because this is what is the main topic, regardless of who's in office, they still do X, Y, and Z. Well, then that means that the office itself and the system which provides that office is the incubator of the sociopathic leaders. Therefore, If you remove the sociopathic leaders and leave the system in place, guess what happens? They build up and regurgitate more sociopathic leaders. And these sociopathic leaders, regardless of party, continue to implement or try to implement sociopathic policies. You don't just remove the leader, you got to remove the system too. This is what I'm talking about. And most people don't like to go in depth on this because it hurts their feelings. They get butt.
Remember,
but
the
that's the
truth
reality of
hurts
God.
the guilty. The truth hurts the guilty.
Yeah. So listen. When we talk to you all, we give you truth. It may have a lot of passion behind it, but I'm passionate about the truth. I'm passionate about talking to people, and people think because a lot through the societies and through their education system and through the media, the propaganda outlets. And sometimes our brains are not functioning and the cylinders are not hitting. So we're not like a well-oiled machine. So sometimes we allow things to go over our head. And this platform is to force you to think, to use that gray matter up here. And to think outside the norms, because the norms is what is getting us in the condition, has us in the condition that we're in and leading us towards destruction. You have to think outside the norms or the bounds of the Western society and the Western lenses, okay? So again, listen what this guy is saying about American policy. This is not me, this is not Rashid, and we are Rashid and Rashid. And even though, and let me say, because somebody said something recently, I gotta say this. Somebody said this recently. Let me take this off the screen for a minute. 1 second. Okay, they looked at my name and they said, well, his name, your name is spelled R-A-S-H-E-E-D, and his name is spelled R-A-S-H-I-D. Well, actually, both of our names are spelled R-A-S-H-I-D. But after the Patriot Act, when I went to get some paperwork done, they told me I had to change the spelling of my name in order to get certain things done. So like, no, indeed, here, look, blah, blah, blah. Listen, but for governmental reasons, you gotta spell it this way. So there you are. So you have the understanding of that, okay? Now let's go. Here we are, right?
So Secretary Blinken has asked for a meeting with Wang Yi, the head of the diplomacy of China. Biden has said he wants to talk to Xi Jinping, and this is of course after they've made all of the furor about the balloon. And of course China had said they would not speak to the defense secretary from the United States immediately when they shot down that balloon. So look, there is hope that there will be some discussions, but the question is, what are the Americans going to offer? What are they going to say? Are they going to say they're going to reduce sanctions, that they're going to stop building new bases, that they're going to stop nuclearizing the Pacific Ocean and ASEAN? Are they going to do that? So I think it's very, very difficult. I think the Americans are in a kind of full-scale escalation in a way that is disguising the structural and economic problems they have at home. Real problems. And so I think, it's China is going to play this. It's a long game, and they're going to play it slowly and keep a very measured response and always be open to communication.
So you hear what he's saying? He's saying that America is in full escalation mode. And you know what that is? Well, let's go to the dictionary real quick. Okay. Give me a second, everyone, because on this show, we like definition of words so that you can understand exactly this being, okay? And it says, containing or holding as much or as many as possible, having no empty space, not lacking or omitting anything, complete. So you have the understanding of full, okay? So we know that not lacking anything, all right? Now, oh man, this thing is right here. Let's go. Give me a second. All right. Now, according to the dictionary, escalation. Escalation means a rapid increase, a rise, a hike. So now, when he says full escalation, he's saying that there is no other room to maneuver because they are what? What? Hiking or rising tensions at an unheard of capacity, right? Or rate. Is that not right? So now we understand that the empire is because she's lashing out, as we say on one show, and I like to do this little analogy about the boxer, right? This guy has been the world champion of his division. He pound for pound. He's been there for the last, right? And he 7 years, 8 years ago, in this young comer. And so he got close to so they can learn movements and everything of uppercutting, pretending that he was trying to help. But in reality, he was trying to scope out the weaknesses of the up and coming because he saw that down the line he would be forced to face him. So now we're 10 years down the line, and this uppercutting is the mandatory challenger for his belt. And this up-and-coming is faster, stronger, got better footwork, got a better granite chin, and has more power than he has. The champion talks a good game because he doesn't want to seem weak or scared or inadequate or just indecisive about this new buck that's coming up. But in reality, in his heart, he understands the winds of change of law. And all that is needed to cement the winds of change is for him to sign the contract and get in the ring with the young buck. So he's lashing out, talking about, well, he doesn't do this good. I do this better. I do this. This is America. She sees the young buck. What's the young buck? China. She sees the up and coming. America has been divisions, but now she sees in the WBC, she sees China. And then in IBF, she sees Russia. And then the WBO, she sees Russia. So she has to fight one of these people. Or sooner or later, she's going to have to fight both of them. This is no longer able to just get away with this here. And so she's lashing out because her reign as champion of the world is coming to an end. She's mad. The glory is being removed. You know, all the hoopla behind her being the best, the richest, the fastest, the most exciting, the smartest, all of that is being washed away. And she's lashing out. That's what we're seeing with the American empire. She's falling. As the commercial said, she's falling and she can't get up. That's what's going on right now with the American empire. In the West, or the European Union, is tied hand in glove to the collapse of the American empire. As we said, man, they have a good scam going. They have a good
had a good scam going, but it's up.
Yeah. But listen, the scam that they had, man, I'm telling you, it's one for the ages. It's one for the ages.
That's right.
You gotta give it to them. I'm gonna go in all of these areas around the world, and I'm gonna tell them these resources from you. And I want, now here's the good, but I'm gonna put my on your goods. That is almost as if you can go into Walmart and tell Walmart what you're willing to pay for the goods on the shelf. But the Americans in the Western world has done that. And so what they say is, listen, those are just rocks in the ground. Let me extract them, and I'll give you a couple of dollars. Now they print
with my face
the faces
on them,
of their leaders on this money, and they put ink in it, and then they assign a denomination for this piece of paper, and then they say, okay, that's just those rocks, but if you'll get, and I find it, And when they refine it, they come back and sell it to them 20 times of what they paid for it. Now, here's the kicker. If you disagree with their policies, after you have accepted so much of their paper, they sanction you and nullify the value of the paper that they gave you. So they got your resources, and all you got in return is worthless paper. Man, that is the best con the world has ever seen. And now it's coming to an end because nations are now pricing things in, or backing up their stuff with commodities, with tangible resources. And this is why the US and the EU and the UK are tied to the hip, because Europe pretty much is a resource poor continent, and they need resources. That's why Pharrell was in Peru. He was need this from Africa. We need so of the stabilization process. If I can create chaos, and if I can destabilize y'all, and I can create opposition, and then I can step in as the peacemaker. Not only do I get kickbacks, but then I can finesse you and the opposition for those goods that I need to maintain my lifestyle. This is one of the greatest cons that anybody has ever thought of in the last 6,000-7,000 years. Tell you what.
I remember one of the Muhammad Speaks Funnies, where they had this Arab sheik with all of these dollar bills in his closet, and they kept disappearing on it. Poof, 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 poof. Isn't that what happened to him now? All that money that these guys think they had, and the American dollar ain't worth 2 cents. And they see it now. It's disappearing on them. Poof, poof, poof,
right. And once again, you lead
the
us
world
to a great
the world sees that scam, and now everybody is wanting to get off of it. They want to get off the good ship America rolling down the track. Is headed for a horrible crash, and the rest of the people look up and say, "Hey, man, it's going into a stone wall," and everybody else want to jump off of it, but the conductor said, "Stay on, keep going. We'll be all right. We'll go through that brick barrier up front. Everything will be just fine." But no, they are ready to collapse. If you're gonna fight, how can you fight a war against the biggest nuclear weapons country and expect to win? How can you go to a war against the world's manufacturer and expect to win? It's a losing proposition on both ends. How can you win? One destroys the entire globe. The other takes away all of your manufacturing. Without China, your supermarkets would stop opening up. Without China, there'd be no goods to buy anything. How can they win? This is what somebody need to ask one of these talking heads. Okay, let's say if you do go and have a war with China, how in the world are you going to supply the goods to your people? You ain't got no manufacturing. You see, the computer that we talking on comes from China. Even the light bulbs that we doing come from China. The television comes from China. Your shoes come from China. Your clothes come from China. So now, if you get over there and do that, what do you think China is going to do? Sit back and say, "Wow, the empire's coming after us. We better kowtow down and bow down." No, they're going to cut you off. Same thing with Russia. If Russia had it, once again, if they had any sense, they would cut the water off. You know, if you had a house, what happens when somebody cut the water off? is not too great in that house.
It gets bad.
It gets real bad.
And,
So that's
and
what Russia
still
needs
has
to
a
do.
lot of cost. Not just that, most people don't understand that Russia provides the United States with cheap fuel for her nuclear power plants over here, and she provides roughly 25% of all the fuel that it is very cheap. It is very good, and the United States needs that. And the Russian Security Council had already passed a resolution to stop selling. I don't know why they haven't stopped selling it, but it is.
But
Most people don't understand that if Russia cuts off this, those power plants shut down because they have been geared towards Russian nuclear fuel, and it's a different type of fuel than the low grade fuel that America uses or did use, or that is produced in American and Western nuclear situations. But before you say something, Rashid, let me show them something real quick. I want to show, because they put your volume and took this picture. I just took this picture from one of the other computers that is running right now. I want you to see something. You see that? It's an excellent connection. So, and us being dropped, and the volume is messing up, and we're freezing and all of that. That is not us. We have excellent connection. It is not us. Not only do we have a poor connection. So, and you have to, so play something. This goes to the heart of what we were just talking about. Now I cut the video. It was about 10 minutes, 11 minutes. I cut it to like 7 minutes because actually, to be honest with you, the first part, the first 2 or 3 minutes of it, was just, he was just, I'm trying to think of some polite way to say it. He was BSing y'all, pretty much. Bad to say. America's in, they will also try to cut down their opponent. They will also try to cut down anybody that may seem to rise or shine in that moment. Isn't that what is pervasive in American society today? The jealousy, the envy, the if I see you with something, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to take that from you. I'll kill you over something. That is I continue to tell you that the mind state of the leaders permeates down through the people. That's why America is suffering violence at an unheard of rate. It is because she's giving violence at an unheard of rate. That's because she values institutions around the globe. She does not value life or the security of life or the sanctity of life. And she's shown that by the constant bombardment of nations occupying Syria, refusing to allow the Syrian government to get their own resources, the corn, the wheat, the gas, the oil, and then sanctioning them. And then right after that, not one Western outlet is talking about Israel committing crimes against humanity and war crimes, bombing Damascus, while they're all dealing with what they're deeming as the greatest earthquake in recorded history. They said that hit Syria and Turkey with the power of 500 atomic bombs. But the media is not that. The media is not on aid because nations can't send it in because of American restrictions and sanctions, right? But again, without the respect for life and the sanctity of life and the sanctity of being able to be free for your nation and your culture, you can see it permeate in America. There's no security of life or sanctity of life or respect of life or respect of property or respect of persons. That comes from the government itself. It is an atmosphere over the American nation. She's giving it out, but she's receiving it home. As thou hast done, so shall it be done unto thee. So we're looking at the destruction of government institutions and governments around the world, and the destruction of lives around the world, and the occupation. And we're seeing it right in America's border, but no one wants to equate these things. Why are all these shootings going? Why have all these people getting killed? They didn't kill my baby over a pair of shoes, but the people are saying that over there too, when they're referring to the American military, the empire. All of these things are interconnected. So Jim Rickards, he talked about there's no viable way to replace the dollar as the world reserve currency. Then he says, well, you can play as a medium of exchange or something to that sort. It's hard for them to openly teach all truth. So I want you to listen to it.
So it's going to be very, very difficult to dislodge the dollar as the reserve currency. As a payment currency, that's
I'm trying to play the video for you all. You see them keep throwing us off. You see this, isn't it? You don't see this on the other channels, do it? Wonder why? Wonder why?
So it's going to be very, very difficult to dislodge the dollar as the reserve currency. As a payment currency, that's completely different. When we were kids, we could use, baseball cards and bottle caps if we wanted to. And basically anything that I want to tender that you're willing to accept is a potential payment currency. Now here, there is a lot more ferment, if you will. The BRICS, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, but they now style themselves BRIC Plus. So when they have their meetings, they invite Argentina, Iran, Turkey, and others. They are working on a new commodity-backed currency that they would use for trade between and among themselves. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Russia, China, and some of the Central Asian republics. But again, they're welcoming new members, including Pakistan and others. They're working on this. There's something called the Eurasian Economic Union, which is kind of Putin's answer to the European Union. Same thing. They're working on a new payment currency. Xi Jinping from China is in Saudi Arabia meeting with the Crown Prince and the King Salman, to talk about, a lot of things, but included among them, would the Saudis be willing to sell oil for Chinese yuan? Again, I'm not saying it's the reserve currency. It's not. But as a payment currency or something you could swap in the markets for other kinds of currencies. So that's going on around the world. And one of the things that's driving it, this was happening anyway, but one of the things that drove it was the U.S. sanctions, and the EU sanctions on Russia, which are a complete blunder. I actually teach financial warfare at the U.S. Army War College. And when I taught the class in April, not far from the start of the war, I said, these sanctions are going to fail. I said, it's going to be worse than fail because they're actually going to backfire and hurt the United States more than it hurts Russia. And there was some skepticism in the class, and I welcome that, and I think it's good. They should express that. But I was exactly right. The Russian ruble today is significantly stronger than it was at the beginning of the war in Ukraine. Remember Biden running around, we're going to destroy the ruble. The ruble is stronger today than it was then. Russia has not lost oil sales. Whatever Western Europe doesn't want to buy, India's buying it, China's buying it. India never bought into the sanctions. They're friends with the United States. They're a democracy. But they're like, hey, this is not our fight. We're going to buy all the oil from Russia that we can get. So it's had very little impact on Russia, some, but not a lot. It's been awful for Western Europe and the United States. They ran around and they seized all these oligarch assets, townhouses in Belgravia, yachts, we got all this stuff. We're taking all this wealth away from the oligarchs. Putin should send Biden like a handwritten thank you note. He hates the oligarchs. We're doing Putin a favor by taking down the oligarchs. He never wanted to take these guys on because they were somewhat powerful. But what he said was to the oligarchs, this is 20 years ago, you can keep your wealth, but keep out of politics. But now it's even better than that because we're destroying the oligarchs. And actually, some of the oligarchs are taking the wealth back to Russia as a safe haven. Putin's strength is the military, the intelligence, the Orthodox Church, and everyday Russians. Those are the four pillars of his strength. The oligarchs are not part of it, so that doesn't affect things one way or the other. But just look at energy prices in Europe. They're going to freeze in the dark this winter. It's already happening. The Germans are running around saying, we got our reserves up to 100%. And, natural gas reserves up to 100%. Well, that's true, but they don't tell you that the reserves are only 20% of the requirements. So as they have 100% of 20%, they don't have the rest. And it's not coming from anywhere, not anytime soon, not for years. And we all know what's going on with energy prices, home heating prices in the United States. This is feeding the inflation that's making people poorer. And there's more to it than that. But the point is, these sanctions have been a complete disaster and will remain so. And Biden said, we're not removing the sanctions until Russia leaves Ukraine. Well, I got news to the president. Russia's not leaving Ukraine. You could have had that deal before the war. There's never been a war that was easier to prevent. But the U.S. wanted the war. Victoria Nuland and Tony Blinken and Jake Sullivan and Susan Rice and all the other warmongers in the White House, they wanted the war. They got it. Now, good luck.
It seems to me like you keep a pretty close eye on gold inflows. I've seen you on Twitter and elsewhere kind of monitoring gold inflows into Russia, especially with the sanctions you just mentioned there. There's been a lot of talk about the circumvention of the US dollar. But I mean, as of late, from what I'm seeing, it sounds like they're almost embracing crypto options, perhaps Bitcoin or something of the sort. How do you see Russia adopting sound money in the near future? Or do you agree that that's still what they're going after with those inflows?
Elvira Nabiullina, who's the head of the Central Bank of Russia, I describe her as the only central bank in the world who knows her job. She built Russian reserves. 20% of Russian reserves are in gold. So they anticipated this. And going back to your earlier question, Trey, about why are these other countries looking for ways out of the dollar? We put sanctions on the Central Bank of Russia. The world was shocked. It's like, hey, it's one thing to sanction titanium exports or something. You froze the reserves of a central bank. So countries like Turkey, China, Saudi Arabia, they're watching this and saying, hey, what if the U.S. doesn't like something we do? What if they don't like us next year and they freeze our reserves? We better get out from under the dollar before that happens. And one of the ways to do that is gold. Gold does it. Gold isn't an alternative. Crypto's not going to come to much, but central bank digital currencies will. That's different. They're not cryptocurrencies. They're not recorded on a blockchain. The ledger is maintained by the central bank or the Treasury, Finance Ministry, as the case may be. They're definitely coming. They're already here in some places. Coming soon. The U.S., Biden has signed an executive order accelerating that path beyond the research, the R&D phase into a pilot program that will be coming very soon. And that is the last step in the totalitarian agenda, because they'll have to do two things at once. They'll have to bring in the CBDCs, but also eliminate cash. Because if you don't like central bank digital currencies, you'll just say, well, okay, I'll get a big pile of cash and pay cash and heck with that. So you got to get rid of cash also. But once you do, you're now in the total surveillance state. So right now, if I go into a bookstore and I buy a book like, I love Ron DeSantis, MasterCard may know, maybe not. They know I bought a book. But all of a sudden, the government and the FBI, the weaponized FBI, they're going to know that I bought a book in praise of one of the president's political enemies. And that makes me a political enemy. Or if I give a campaign contribution to a Republican politician and so forth. So they already know you're there. If you got your iPhone, they know you're there through GPS. They don't know exactly what you're doing. They could subpoena MasterCard, I guess. You need judicial help with that. But with the central bank digital currency, they would know. And then they can retaliate very simply with a couple of keystrokes, freeze your account, seize your account. And for example, let's say you work and you got a regular job and you get a paycheck. Well, they withhold tax. There's withholding tax on your paycheck. You get a W-2 at the end of the year, file your tax return, do a reconciliation. But that's not true for doctors, lawyers, consultants, architects, small business people, entrepreneurs, professionals, etc. They don't have withholding tax. But all of a sudden they say, hey, you lawyers, you doctors, we're going to take 10% out of your bank account every month with a couple of keystrokes. And again, we'll send you a 1099 or whatever, 1099 crypto, and you can sort it out with us a year later on the tax return. Those kinds of seizures, freezes, withholdings, political surveillance, weaponized FBI, that will all come to a peak as a result of the central bank digital currency. That's the bad news. The good news is Americans, I would say people all over the world, are extremely adaptive and inventive when it comes to making new forms of money. And they'll be able to do that. The recent ways to do it, by the way, was silver dollars, which is where the whole American currency system started. Just a 1 ounce American silver eagle. If I'm willing to tender it and you're willing to accept it, the heck with your central bank digital currencies. People will go to that once they realize, and they are realizing, that this is a tool of political surveillance and political enforcement by a weaponized FBI.
He was talking about, at first he was talking about the BRICS and how the nations are moving away from the dollar. and how they saw what happened with Russia, and how America and Europe just arbitrarily, through all the laws that they claimed to propagate, threw them all out the window to seize Russian assets, so just to hurt the Russian economy. I remember Macron said they intend to break Russia's economy and bring it to its knees. Remember when Joe Biden said the ruble will be rubble? Remember when he said that in Poland, and they said they intended to destroy the Russian economy. These policies were brought about by the insanity of the insane leadership, but they didn't think through it because they're insane. They didn't think about the ramification and how these would send ripple effects across the globe. And now nations are trying to become members of the BRICS, become members of the European Eurasian Economic Union. Latin America is starting their own currency. Nations just yesterday, I believe. And the same thing, Gaddafi, see that if Gaddafi, they would have in the nations, how they're moving from the dollar. This is through America for certain reactions, but she got unintended reactions. And this is bringing her to her knees economically, and she's becoming more and more desperate. The US dollar, life's blood to the American military. It is the life's blood for America to be able to spend and live above her means. It is the life's blood for the entire Western world, because you have the pound sterling tied to the dollar. You have the euro tied to the dollar. If the dollar falls, the pound sterling falls. If the pound sterling falls, so too will the euro, meaning the collapse of the European Union, meaning the collapse of Western unity, meaning the destruction of Western wealth. And that is why all of them are tied to the hip against Russia and China, and the unification of Africa, the unification of Latin Americans, and the Eurasian Economic Union. They see economic death and paralysis in the corner. And they are doing their best to try to push these from coming on. As soon as you say it, I gotta Did you hear me?
So, what you say again? You froze there for a minute.
Maybe messing with him. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The blowback of it is, I'm on the West Coast here, and I was watching the news yesterday, and they were saying that some Chinese restaurant gas bill from $1,000, $2,000 a month to $10,000 a month. And the woman was saying she wanted to set up a GoFundMe bill to help pay the gas bill. See, this is the repercussions of that war on Europe. Instead of the gas from America, see these multi global corporations, they don't care nothing about no country. They're gonna take the gas from America that they get from America and put it liquid based it and send it over to Ukraine or to Europe. And that's the blowback of the war on Europe. See, Europe ain't got no gas coming in, so they're gonna take it from America. You see, they that the whole shell game again. Rob people to pay Paul. They are taking everything that you're gonna have here and sell it over there, right? You having shortages. I don't know about you, but most of the country, but here in the western part of it, they have an egg shortage. $8, $9, $10 a dozen. A lot of things are happening. But what's happening is that uh, China is not sending the volume of stuff that she used to send to America. And I work in the industry in the transportation end of the chain, going back and forth. And I know the difference. You know, it's really being cut back. It may be about half of what it once was. And the closer we get further down the line, and then that cuts back a little bit more. You'll start seeing it at your supermarkets and stuff, that this thing is getting ready to get real nasty. And then, but the Western leadership, instead of saying, let's put a brakes on this and let's step back, and instead of they going all in on it, and they're just showing that, like we said, that they're insane people.
Yeah, yeah. I want to, before we start closing out, I want to take them back for a minute. I want to play this clip because it goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about, with nations moving away from the dollar, the euro, and the pound. So pay close attention to this. Playing.
South Africa, the largest economy in Africa, which is, you know, in so many ways such an important continent for our entire world that provides us with so many riches and resources, that I think they're just fed up. They're fed up of the fact that their entire economy is dictated to by US fiscal policy.
Why do you think they're fed up, Chris? Because, you know, the dollar saves nations all around the world. It's the kingpin currency. Why would they be fed up?
The fact of this policy of most countries that trade in US dollars have really extracted wealth from their country, as opposed to, let's take China, that has invested billions, if not trillions of dollars in the economies of African nations, where it seems to be, instead of extraction, their policy seems to be one of investment.
And they're winning the hearts and minds. The way China is working in Africa, building infrastructure, schools, roads, hospitals, clinics, these kinds of things, it's almost like they're winning the hearts and minds of the people there.
Absolutely. I think that's totally the correct way to look at it. I mean, let's say we're from a town or a village in Africa, and, you know, you're down a mine, or you're working in some kind of mineral extraction, and in the past, all you've really seen is Western companies come employ you and just extract that wealth, whereas they see a Chinese company come and employ them and actually reinvest that money in new homes, like you said, new roads, new infrastructure, new schools, new hospitals, in things that really improve your life. I think if it were you or I'd know which side I'd want to be on.
But Chris, talk to me about BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Potentially it's going to be Saudi Arabia. Potentially Argentina, potentially Iran. What are the implications there, Chris?
Yeah, Rory. BRICS, as it is right now, covers a far larger expanse of the world population than the United States could ever dream, with all of their different trade associations and different ways in which they try to manipulate the world. The fact is, if Saudi join that organisation, we've already got South Africa, the largest economy in Africa. In that, we've got China. We've got all these big Brazil, the largest country in South America. If the Saudis come in there, and all these other countries that are requesting now to join, I mean, it's really unstoppable.
It is.
And on a fiscal level, which is probably more important, though, and I think this might be what the Foreign Minister of South Africa is also referring to, on a fiscal level, there's really nothing stopping these countries coming together, very similar to the euro, right? The European Union has its own currency, the euro. We could have the BRICS currency, right? At that point, that is incredibly powerful. And for me, it's very, very difficult to see how the United States Federal Reserve could ever counteract a currency with that much power.
In Riyadh, less than 2 months ago, where they agreed to go essentially to national currencies, it's almost like bye-bye petrodollar, hello petro-yuan. And yet all these OPEC countries, they're all joining on board here. They're all looking to trade in national currencies. This is like a snowball roaring down a mountain and getting massively more and more bigger as every day goes past here. It looks already, to me anyway, it looks like the petrodollar, which is the spine of America's budget on foreign policy, is being shattered.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. I think we only had to see that as well from the last OPEC Plus meeting, or even Biden's visit to Jeddah to see MBS prior to Xi's. We saw in those meetings, we saw the OPEC Plus countries, which are obviously led by Saudi Arabia, who chairs that group, basically say no. They did that with oil pricing. They refused to lower the price. They said, we can't do that because we're not going to gamble with our economies anymore. We're not going to allow you to dictate to us through the US dollar, which is exactly as you've pointed out how they've done it, to dictate how we run our own fiscal policies and how we look after our own people in our own countries.
Saudi Arabia saying that they were open for to discuss non-oil trade. Then we see that Xi Jinping met with the Saudi leadership, and the Saudi leadership agreed to start accepting yuan as payments for their purchase of oil. Now, what's significant about this is that China is the largest purchaser of oil, and they are the largest buyer of Saudi Arabia's oil. So now we have a rival to the dollar. That is what America is really enraged with China about. The displacement of the dollar. That is the life's blood of the American empire and the Western world. And what China is doing is pulling the plug on it.
What people don't understand, when that takes place, you can't run up no deficits and just billions of dollars, $200, $300, $400, $500, $600 billion. You can't have no budget, no defense budget of $1 trillion. Like, you can't do stuff like that. You can't throw money at the problem. You can't be buying up and spending money for all of these bases all over the world. It's a construction of the American. See, people don't understand that. They have no concept of what is really taking place. If I can't print up money, then what is the repercussions of this? Then that means that nobody accept my money around the country, around the world. Nobody accept my money. Then these ships that bring all of them goods on them hundreds of ships that come around over here from China and give us all of their goods, they stop coming. That means that you can't buy oil from. That's what I was. Another thing I was going to talk about is that he had how America had got Europe to stop bringing in Russian oil while they bringing in more. You got to give it to the empire, right? You got to give it to him. He is sharp among. There's no equal in deception to him. He get all of his friends and we're going to sanction that Russian oil. and then when you turn the lights out, give me all you can. You got to give it to him. He is real slick. he is the arch deceiver. But once again, those without his world economy, the world currency, he can't even buy no oil from somebody else. He can't buy no titanium, no aluminum, no platinum. He can't do anything. And he becomes the one that's in want. Remember that.
And remember this, once that happens, there will be the floodgates will be opened up for all of those dollars that's overseas to come back to America and cause hyperinflation. Now, on that note, we're going to leave off. We want you to hit the like button, tell people about us, share our platform. We're on theempower.locals.com. We're on Twitter. We're on Twitch. We're on Rumble. Sign up for all of those. Rashid, as we go out, what have you to say?
Remember, truth hurts the guilty. And since we've been on the air, we may be the most hated show on the internet. Why?
Yeah. So in closing, know that we always love you best. And again, stay strong. My voice is getting weaker. If it gets stronger, we'll do a live tomorrow. If not, we'll do one Wednesday. But stay tuned. Be on the lookout for And we're going out the same way we always go out. Mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces.